Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be discussing some theories for episode 609, Mister Agreste, or my new name for it, Statue Daddy.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Most of the spoilers we got from Comic-Con for Season 6 appear to be from this episode, so let's quickly go over what we do know so far for certain before we move on to theorising. So the opening seems to be Marinette having a nightmare. She's Ladybug, but to get away from the fight, she runs to the houseboat and de-transforms. She seems pretty anxious though when she runs in, so I'm wondering if she was fighting Gaby Baby or something to do with her guilt, basically like a manifestation of her guilt. However, Luca is suddenly there and she tells him her secret, but he changes into Adrien, and he's like, "How dare you lie to me?" and he breaks up with Marinette and he gets akumatized. Marinette then wakes up and is like, yeah, better not do that. We then have these two images which I feel might also be from this episode, where she has some food and goes to meet Adrien at his house. We know they go to the mayor's office together, so I would assume Adrien has known about this meeting for some time. It's not that spontaneous, you know, and has asked Marinette to go with him and Natalie. As we've seen this season, Adrien is becoming very dependent on Marinette emotionally, and I would assume he already knows the meeting is about his father, so, you know, it makes sense he invites Marinette. So Adrikins is invited to the mayor's office, and it seems Miss Bustier, or Mayor Bustier I guess, I keep calling her Miss Bustier, or perhaps the city's council in general, want to build a statue in Gaby Baby's honour, with Theo as the designer slash sculptor slash both. I don't know much about statues, I'll be honest. And don't ask me what happened to the statue in the park by Marinette's house that we see in Recreation, because I don't know, I don't write the show, I just talk about it, it's not my fault. However, Adrien is like, "I'm sorry, but this statue is a no from me." As we saw at the end of Recreation, Adrien does seem to admire what his father supposedly did. Obviously he doesn't know the truth just yet, so he probably wouldn't admire in them, but at the minute he does admire him. But honestly, it's not a surprise he's not ready for that. If I was Adrien, I'd be like, you know what, let's hold off on this statue for like 2 years maybe. In the timeline of Miraculous, assuming this episode is somewhat close to the chronological start of this season, because again, I don't know what order they're putting these episodes in. But for Adrien, it's only been like 2 months since his dad died, so, you know, it's not a surprise, he's still grieving. He doesn't want to see that every time he looks out of his window. So Adrien leaves, and he's pretty sad about all this, I'm assuming because his father was mentioned, and Marinette tries to comfort him. Natalie is also there, and she is suspicious of something, but we'll get to that in a minute. However, Theo, being himself, isn't taking no for an answer. He gets akumatized into Statue Daddy, and he goes after Adrien because he made him angry. He wants to try and change his mind. Now, when Adrien sees the statue walking towards him, he is quite clearly traumatized, which I would be too if I saw a statue of my dead parent walking towards my house. Also, in Copycat, when Theo was akumatized the first time, I'm pretty sure Copycat had Cat Noir's voice, so I am assuming Statue Daddy has Daddy Agreste's voice. So that would, you know, another layer, even more traumatizing. Obviously, he is slow to react, as I think anyone would be in this situation, but Natalie arrives, Adrien transforms to get her out, and then he fights Statue Daddy. He cataclysms him twice in a fun reference to destruction, but Adrien is relieved it doesn't have much of an effect and says, "You're no one's dad." And I feel the meaning here is like twofold. First of all, you're no one's dad, as in you're not real, you're just a statue, you can't physically be anyone's parent, but also you're no one's dad, as we saw in Representation. We know Adrien did view Gaby Baby quite negatively towards the end. Statue Daddy throws him across the city to Town Hall, and Cat Noir calls Ladybug for backup, and that's everything we know for sure. However, where did Marinette go between Town Hall and the fight? While this does seem like a very much Adrien-centred episode, she will be somewhere, she might have just dropped off the face of the earth. So since we saw Luca in that nightmare, I'm wondering if these screenshots with the snake Miraculous are from this episode. After how sad Adrien gets at Town Hall, perhaps she's like, I need to find a way to help Adrien deal with his grief, because he's clearly not okay, and I could do that by having Ladybug tell him the truth. But assuming this episode is set after a Velotor, she knows that has the potential to go very badly, so she astrobugs it over to Brazil to practice on Luca, where she also asks for the snake Miraculous from him so she can practice without Luca actually finding out. Honestly, I do hope it goes well for the sake of her mental health, but for the sake of drama, I don't want it to also. However, I also hope we end with Luca actually knowing the secret, knowing the truth. In comparison to Alia, I do actually think Luca would be much more open to keeping the secret because he'll understand the reasons why Marinette is doing it and the pressure for it. Not to say that Alia doesn't understand that, but I just think Luca would be more likely to keep the secret. As for Natalie, I'm not really sure what she's suspicious of since there aren't really any clues here, but I think a possibility could be a council member is hanging around City Hall. All the people on the council seem like fairly influential figures, so if they have a position in Parliament, I wouldn't be surprised. And other than her dad and Tom away, I'm not actually sure if Natalie is aware who the other council members are, so I'm assuming it's one of those two, if she doesn't know the other members indeed. But perhaps she spots Daddy Sonker or Tom away at City Hall, which honestly would make sense. There seems to be something more going on with both of them separately, but neither of them have really done much so far this season. However, I think this screenshot could be from the episode 2. I'm not quite sure of the exact location other than this is outdoors clearly, but Marinette seems to be talking to an adult, as the shoulder on the left is much higher than hers, so they're taller than her, and as we know, Natalie's shoulder is this colour from the clothes she wears. So perhaps towards the end of this episode, Marinette wants to talk to Natalie about Luca, or just perhaps about how she's feeling with the burden of keeping the secret, but Natalie is like, nope, you can't tell anyone, and if Luca did indeed find out, that adds more burden to Marinette if she can't tell Natalie that someone else knows. As for Adrien though, I think he'll have a lot of attention in this episode, and while I'd like to say he'll confide in someone about how he's really feeling, whether that's to Marinette, Natalie, Nino or someone else, I'm not actually sure he will right now. I think he will eventually, but not right now. I think all he'll do is try and make Theo understand why he's not ready for this big ass statue of his dad in the city. You know, he still lives there, he also lives in the same house still as his dad did. There are reminders and memories of him absolutely everywhere, and it would be hard enough for Adrien to move on already, and he doesn't want this as well. But I think that would be it. Adrien has been taught to isolate himself and pretend he's okay because of how he's been brought up, especially with an emotionally unavailable dad, and I think as Adrien he'll retreat further inside himself. However, I think these screenshots of Ladybug and Cat Noir hugging on the Trocadero could be from the end of the episode. In my opinion, Adrien does trust Marinette, but I feel like there are some things he thinks he can't fully talk to her about, whereas he can talk to Ladybug about it because she can't ask for more details because that will put them both in danger. This way he can just talk about how he's feeling without having to be too specific, and she can still comfort him, which she does. So there you go, besties. Those are my ideas for theories on 609 Mister Agreste from the evidence we have so far. Of course, I will be on the lookout for more evidence, but I would love to know what you think in the meantime. I'll see you in the next one.